Hi everybody, welcome to the stream. Today we're going to continue where we left off with refactoring the monster strategy code. So we ran into a weird and funny issue last time where I once again got annoyed that we had to pass in these three parameters into pretty much everything related to monster strategies. The reason why I get annoyed is because the strategy name itself is kind of redundant. We kind of realized that the function that gets called for the monster strategy should know what it is name-wise and should be able to... Basically, we need like a translation that goes from whatever strategy function we're calling into the strategy itself. So we were starting to brainstorm some ideas about how we were going to implement this. And what we came up with was we're going to link the name and the function in one class. And this makes sense because whatever runs this needs to be, one, its own instance of it. It can't just be a static function that exists somewhere. And not only does it have to be aware of what it is as an object, but we need to also link it together with the string name. So originally the string name was all I was going to do, but looking at this list more closely, this looks very familiar to something else you might typically use in programming, and that would be an enum. So this is something I realized earlier today as I was thinking about how are we going to refactor this, is why is this just not an enum that links to this strategy function class, which has the string name of the function and the strategy function itself? So this realization made me think, oh, that's the direction we have to go in. Additionally, strategy data doesn't have to exist as a global anymore because of that. If we can make something to like a run strategy function where we just specify the enum instead. So it's kind of funny that this all turns into just using something that already exists, an enum, to get this done, right? Usually figuring out the simpler route takes a bit. So today we're going to be spending a majority of our programming time refactoring the monster strategy code now that we have a direction of attack. So I have deleted the global structure from here. This is no longer going to exist. We're refactoring all of this. For one, so initialize strategies. The way we want this to end up looking is we're still going to have some kind of map, but the map is going to link an enum to an object containing both a name and a function. So that is the goal. So where am I going to put this? Probably in here. We're just going to make a private standard unordered map containing a new enum. We'll call the enum a monster strategy, plain and simply. And then the monster strategy will link to a strategy function itself. Just like that. And this can be called the monster strategies. And we're going to start inserting things into here. And this is where we might make a small macro so we don't have to type as much. I think that's very fair for this. So we are getting rid of this concept, this specific strategies concept. I don't think we really want that. And let's create an enum for monster strategy. Perhaps putting it inside of monster would be a good idea. I don't know about this struct. This struct might get refactored at some point, but we'll clearly have an enum called monster strategy. And essentially we are mirroring what we are doing right now inside of here. So let's just take these, let's move them over and redo these as enums. So I'm still going to keep these for something else, Git itself will keep track of these changes, so I don't really have to. If we were to click here, we essentially get everything we just deleted. So we can reference that again if we need to. It's okay to destroy these. So clearly we're getting rid of these right here. And we can get rid of everything after it as well. And that will at least be the names for the enum, like so. And right now these names, they're kind of generic, but they are all caps, and they all do have underscores, so I'm not afraid to keep this as an enum right now, just for ease of accessibility. Maybe at some point we will change that, but for now I think this is okay. So we're gonna have to insert into monster strategies. We would naturally do that inside of the initialize strategies function here. So let's see what that will look like. So it will be monster strategies. I don't see it for some reason. Is it not static? It is not. Okay, so monster strategies should pop up now. You would think. Maybe it's because we still have an error that it's not currently available. But that's the idea anyway. Monster strategies is undefined. Strategy function doesn't exist. Did I delete it by accident? I think I accidentally deleted it. Oh no. Oops. We still want that. And that can go probably up here. I think we do want it to be public. So it will look like this. And so we're not going to have a string anymore. Now it's going to be an enum. So for example, the enum would be run towards. And this is inside the monster class, so it should recognize. And follow that up with something that has two parts to it. One is the actual name, so that's going to be, in this case, run towards. And the follow-up to that is the function. Now the function is where I still want to have a system like before. So maybe deleting these wasn't quite what I was looking for, but right? Like, this still should exist for the function itself, because I'm not writing the function in here. So I think we still need to have these exist, just separate. An array would work as well, and then just do monster strategies, name of monster strategy as an enum equals whatever. Oh, because the enum is a number. That's fascinating. I've never thought about it that way. I have never realized that that's just something that literally would work. It does work because these are literally just numbers that would index into an array. That's funny. The only thing is, I would have to naturally extend it every time. Like, I would have to have like a end of enum kind of thing, so I know how many there are. If I want to initialize it, I don't even know if you can. I don't know if you can initialize an array with a dynamic number. I don't think this is dynamic though. I think the compiler will make this or excuse me, it would be something like whatever this is supposed to be, right? I don't know if you could do that, but I guess technically the compiler should know how many that is. Yeah, that's allowed. That's interesting. So there's an idea. But naturally it would function the same as a map. There really is no... Yeah, there really is no benefit to using a map here, considering this is possible. I kind of like that. I think arrays are a little smaller, have a smaller footprint, so I kind of like that idea. And they're probably just in general more compatible because you don't need a hashing function. It just literally exists. So I kind of like that. Obviously the end enum has to exist, and we should probably mention that this should be at the end. This should always be the last item. Although for that I usually like to not put a comma after it. That way I don't accidentally, like, if I just came over here and I'm like, okay, let me add something to this, then naturally I'll be like, wait, I forgot a comma, but then I would read this and be like, oh. So I usually like to leave out the comma if I have an end enum thing like that. Otherwise I would just leave the comma there so I can attach more to it. So yeah, that's good. We could also make a visible white space there. That also makes it clear, hey, don't insert there. I like that idea. Okay, so this is good. I do like this. And yeah, that just simplifies this a little bit. So it would look more like this and whatever we're gonna do with the functions. So I think we've realized that we still want these static functions because I still want that ability to write all the AI code in their own source files. I think I've always liked that, and it is a feature I'm committed to keeping. So on top of all this, we are going to bring this back still just to define these functions. Although, again, we shouldn't need this standard string strategy. We should be able to write something to get the strategy name in another manner. So I think this is coming back. I didn't delete all those, so... My only other issue with this right now is that I don't want to be able to accidentally do this again, because I know one thing I did before, like for example, I was using the wolf code yesterday as an example. The wolf AI actually calls other strategy functions. So right now, it's possible for us to do something like this, and it would run. Obviously, I've changed a lot, so this doesn't exist right now. But if I put it back... here we go. Where are we? Yeah. If I put him back... This indentation is kind of a mess. Wait, is this all in... Oh, I see. I did something funny there. This goes to that, this goes to that. VF2D is ambiguous again. And... this is not supposed to be there. Yeah, somehow I messed some of these up. Just putting stuff everywhere. Okay. Anyway, with this being like this, back in the wolf strategy, this was possible. I actually don't want this to be possible anymore. I want this to just not be a thing, because what we're going to end up doing, this is the ultimate plan, is we're going to have some kind of general run strategy macro or something. It's not good. Well, it might be a function, whatever it ends up being, but you're supposed to then supply the enum, so I'll just apply like run towards, right? And that in turn is supposed to run another strategy that we specify, not like this. So whatever the result is, we want it to be impossible for these to reference other strategies. So I'm trying to think how we would accomplish that. Like, these basically cannot be functions because they will all have to exist in some kind of namespace, and it would be the same namespace unless I make a separate namespace for every single one, and that just sounds dumb. Maybe I can't prevent this realistically, because what's also stopping us from just doing monster, strategies, whatever, right? But that's a little more to type. So it'd be like, that might be more acceptable? I don't know, because then you'd have to type like this, you'd have to do dot function, and you'd have to call blah blah blah. So the idea is this run strategy function does all this for us automatically, making it harder to access. But that function has to live somewhere, and I want that function to live in a place that I can define in one source file. So I guess right now we're trying to tackle, how do we make this source file define something else in another file and bring it all together? It's almost like I just want one giant source file from head to toe with all the strategies, but split up in files. That's essentially what I want, right? And maybe we can make that work if we do our includes in a certain way. I'm just trying to think how we would piece all this together. Because it should theoretically be possible. But essentially what I want is to be able to say, okay, whatever strategy this is supposed to be, monster strategies, wolf in this case, we then say that function becomes equal to, right? And then this becomes a lambda like this, and we define it that way. That's essentially what we're trying to accomplish, like this. But this is like outside, it's not in anything. It would have to be like this is static. So in theory, being able to do this should be possible. Or, excuse me, I think it's under strategy. I forget where I put it. I think I just put it under monster. Yeah, like this. But yes, I can define the array itself, but then every single function itself would also have to be defined in that file. So I don't know, maybe I don't get a choice here if I do it this way. And maybe that's originally why I went this method. This is a very challenging thing to try and figure out. Like, the only other way, and I briefly mentioned it yesterday, was that each of these monster strategy functions ends up being compiled into its own DLL or library, depending on which OS you're using, and then it has to get linked into your main program and read from there. And that to me just sounds like so much extra work for doing something like this. That should be possible. It's just so convenient that we could specify a function and then provide the other functions like that. Maybe we can do something about this at runtime. Maybe these functions will have arguments that are not possible to be filled out just through having this, right? So another idea is that this right here just can't be filled out, or if we try to call run towards as is, whatever it needs to fill out here, it won't really be possible through here. I don't know, it's just trying to figure out how this would work. Like, I guess I can't avoid this, but I don't want to use this, is the thing. So maybe we'll be okay. Like, I could add something at runtime that says, if we enter this and we have some kind of like check that says, hey, every time you call run strategy, like add one to a counter or something that says, oh, what strategy are we supposed to be in, and what strategy are we currently in? You could have like a check, a pre-check when you're running the strategy. That's a possibility. Alright, but I guess we're overcomplicating it, and maybe it's just time to make it work. I think it's clear that what we're trying to accomplish can't be done in any easy way, and so we're just gonna have to accept one of the drawbacks to doing it this way right now, which I was trying to avoid, but doesn't really look possible or easy to make possible. Okay, so I guess we're going to stick with that for now. We kind of admit defeat, and we're now going to do this for all the strategies in here. So that's just a simple multi-selection fix. So it will look like let's see here. I technically want to keep everything intact, so I'll just bring this over here and set them equal to something like, oh, I lost my multi-select because of an auto indent. That's always fun. And I think that will work. So I think it's complaining that monster strategy function does not match because argument number 1 does not match parameter function operate equals where it's a const monster strategy function. Is that what we put originally? I don't think we made it const. Well, maybe this is const, and that's why. It still says the same thing. It still says the same thing. Oh, you know what? It doesn't match. It's right. Yeah, it doesn't match. That's true. The parameters are not... I forgot we removed a parameter, so that it's gonna be like that for a minute. So yeah, we're getting rid of the strategy parameter. I don't even really want to include this other stuff, so that's interesting. Like, it's making me think, okay, well, when it's time to access these functions, do I still want to pass them in through here or not? Or do I want to pass it in a different way? Like, I guess that's fine. Yeah, I don't mind that. So let's see here. So they will now look like this. And yeah, we're gonna have to redefine those, of course. Does this still not like it? Well, now this is const. Okay, so now it likes it, which is fine. Oh, I remember I used a safe map here before. This was actually pretty important. I liked using that safe map because it ensured that I wasn't going to overwrite these at any point in time. And I kind of like that. I think maybe that's why I was originally leaning toward a map, because I ended up using a safe map, which I kind of like more now that I'm looking at it. So maybe, for the sake of safety, like, what are the chances I'm going to accidentally overwrite this in someplace else? Probably very slim, but I think I'm going to do it anyways because that was my initial intention with it. So yeah, we'll go back to a safe map. I actually just realized that was my original intention with all this, was using a safe map. So we do have a safe unordered map. Yes. So it would look like this. Monster strategy. Strategy function. Oops. Okay. So, is this not happy? Why are you not happy? Wait, what? Oh. Well, I mean, I feel like the insert function should exist. That's kind of core to it. I'm going to add it. I also remember last time, I found out it didn't have a count function. Or not a count function, a contains function. So I feel like we should implement some more of them, because that only makes sense. This should be const. This should be a t reference to a key. That should be map contains key. Yes. Expected. Okay. Does that not work? Oh, it's const. Hold on. Right? Wait, why am I putting auto here? I'm dumb. Okay, anyway. Insert. Why is it still complaining? I'm so confused. So insert is just going to follow map.insert. It's going to contain a key plus the object. Whatever O is. I don't know if I should be including const. I feel like the constness actually comes from the type itself, right? That only makes sense. But I feel like the key could be const anyways. The key being const I think is fine. Insert. Constant. What? Argument types are const standard string. When it should be standard. Okay. I guess. Do I have like an auto thing going on here right now? Yeah, I do. Okay. I was using this as like a test, I guess, of it to see what would build and not build. So I guess that's fine. That's actually a good test set. But yeah, why is this wrong? Is that not how we do it? I think that's correct. No, wait, I think you're supposed to insert a pair, right? With insert. I think it's supposed to be a pair. Now I gotta check. Standard map insert. Insert value. Insert. Yeah, value is supposed to be a pair. Inserts value. So that is correct. And it looks like it resolves now. So that's my bad. And then we have to do the same for the safe map. I still think the key could be const. I don't think that matters. And down here, same thing. So that's a contains and an insert for the safe map. So switch it to a safe map. So we set initialize now, and this means that nothing can be inserted into it after the initialize. Funny enough, I just turned this into my own thing. Does this not know its initial value of reference to non-const must be an L value? Really? Oh, because I put as a reference. I mean... do we want to move it? Isn't that what it's gonna do? Hold on, let me see. What's number 2? Overload 2 is equivalent to standard forward and only participates in overload resolution if is constructible. I feel like that's what I want to do. Const. I guess I'll just do const then. That makes more sense. Because I could do and, but I don't necessarily want to move it. I just want it to be able to construct in place, so that will fix that. C++ is so confusing, man. Alright, so that takes care of that. I just wanted it to construct in place so I don't have to define another object just to put that there. Because I like that syntax. So next up, now that we have this, these are all going to have to be changed where they are defined, of course. And now, let's see here. It's literally just going to be delete string. I just deleted them initially, but here, this is where things are going to change. So we want to make a new function, a static function in Monster Strategy that allows us to run other functions for us, like run other strategies. So initially when a strategy is run in Monster, should be somewhere around here, should be a run underscore strategy. There it is. So this right here is ultimately what's going to do everything else, where we don't have to define a monster, we just kind of do it inside of the monster itself. So this is no longer going to be a static function, which means this should be accessible, and FELAPS time will be accessible through game, so we can get it that way. And so instead the syntax is now going to look like this, and we just choose our strategy. Like, we even know what our strategy is, we're just going to define it here as get strategy name, which is the initial strategy the monster is supposed to run, and go from there. So I think at this point, to differentiate it from anything else, so we're less confused, we're going to change its casing so it's not static anymore, and it's going to be called Run Strategy, and it accepts a strategy, monster strategy enum. Like so. And then that in turn is going to be what we look up to get the actual function. So it's going to be strategy monster strategies, which is not in here apparently. Oh, is monster strategy not defined? How is that? Oh, this is runstrategy.cpp. I want to move this to the monster source file, because that would make sense. And that is now called Run Strategy. And it's going to be monster strategies dot at strategy is going to be run. So the dot function is going to be called, and now we supply the monster reference, the elapsed time, and I guess we still supply the string, but now the string comes from the lookup table. So that's actually the key, right? I just realized we actually do still want the standard string here. So yeah, let me put all that back. I guess I'm going to undo that change. Oh, I missed one. Also, right now it copies that string. I don't see any harm in doing a string view. The only reason I would use the name is to compare it with its original name from the config file. So a string view here wouldn't hurt, and I'm never going to copy it back into a string. So I'm obligated to do that. I like that idea. Because I'm also like, we're also copying a string every time, which is like, that's kind of weird. I don't know why we even did that in the first place. So that's, I feel like that's just an oopsie. But there's standard string view. So I like that. Because we can, a string to a string view is essentially free. A string view to a string is not. So when we define this function, it's going to say, pass in the monster reference, followed by the elapsed time. And finally, the name of it itself. So again, we would say monster strategies at name to pass in that strategy name. So now it looks something like this, which I think is a lot better because we are referencing the proper name. And that saves us quite a bit. So why are we why is the IntelliSense having a stroke right now? I did something. I guess it's having a stroke as in it's... Oh, yeah, we have to fix, we do have to fix a lot of stuff here. So there's still plenty to fix, essentially. Explicit type is missing. What? Did I close this by accident? I know I was messing with the curly braces earlier, but it should be fine. Oh. Yeah, we lost one. Okay. Anyway. I'm like, IntelliSense is having a field day right now. So what's wrong with this? No instance of function matches argument list. Monster float standard string. Okay, yeah, we still have to change the definition of monster strategy function. Yeah, the function itself is going to expect a string view. A monster ref. Okay. So far, so good. I think we're heading on the right track. We have successfully linked both the function and the name together and made a structure that holds both of those pieces of information in one place that we can easily access, and created a new function to call and run these things for us. So whenever we run into this now, instead we're just going to call run strategy and supply the new strategy. So in this case, it would be run underscore towards, and that's it. That's all we have to do. Now, how do we prevent from getting confused with the one in monster strategy is the question. Like, I would have to supply right now, then enum names explicitly, and I don't really want to. I feel like that's kind of dumb, but I don't think I have a choice. Like, even if I say using enum, I don't think that overwrites this, or does it? I feel like that would be hilarious if it does. This would be a monster strategy. Oh, it does. Wow. I did not expect that to work. It doesn't when it's outside of there, though. That's interesting. And I kind of like that because then it prevents me from accidentally doing this in the first place. Because now it's referencing the enum, and enums don't have that function. I actually like that. That might solve the problem I initially had. The only thing I want to do now is abstract this out. Make it so it's just something like... wolf. Like, if I can make it... Or... maybe like a define strategy. If I can make something like this now, I think that will... So just figuring out the like last piece of the abstraction here that I would like to use. I kind of like that. Then I can include all this information without having it be there. It'll be like hidden away. Why is the function name uppercase? Because it's a weird... My initial design of this is like, these are all static. If it's like a... It's because it's special, so I made it all uppercase. So it was like a static function for monster strategies, which I decided I wanted in separate source files, so I made it this way. It's like a very special case. Normally I would not do that, which is why I did change run strategy to lowercase afterwards, because I realized that made more sense. Yeah. We're just in the middle of refactor software architecture hell right now. That's all we're doing, so. But we're figuring it out. We're getting close to the dream. Close to the result we actually want. So this is what I'm thinking. Some kind of macro for this that takes care of this, so it's hidden away. And as a nice bonus, it makes it so that we can't call other strategies by accident using the old pattern. So I kind of like this. Let's try it, see if we like it. So I'll move the macro eventually, but it's gonna look something like... define strategy. name. And we will have this in it. So it's gonna look something like this. And I think that will just about do it. And so from here, everything else can be defined accordingly. I just kind of wish that it, let me see, what's wrong with this? Or what's wrong with this? Why did my Siri go off? Oh. The strategy is now... Wait. Must be relative to a specific object. Before, this was a string. But no, that gets passed in. Oh, this is wrong. That's why. We changed that again. So that's what it should look like. Is it fine now? Yes, okay. Never knew using enum was a thing? Yeah, it's just handy sometimes, but in this case, it's kind of fancy looking. Okay, so let me back up here. So we want define strategy. My only gripe with this right now is that extra curly brace. How are we gonna remember that extra curly brace? Because now this is like pretty much non-natural syntax, and the issue I'm having is it defines a curly brace here, so we have to end it. I usually put like an end strategy thing, so I might just do that here too. Declaration is incompatible with declaration. Oh, yeah. Have to do that up here. That was the initial plan. Okay. And then, yeah, we're gonna add an end strategy, which is usually what I do in situations like this. When we have to define like a syntax inside of a macro. So it'll end up looking like this, which I think I'm okay with. That doesn't look too bad. Oh, why are we converting to a standard string? I think it's just, from an old, yeah, this is just old. Let's see. Phase uses strategy name, which is currently a string. So I think we're converting everything now to a string view, because like I said, the only reason strategy name was a const standard string reference was because we weren't using string view back then, but every case right now we're using a string view for it. So that can be a string view. It's indexed as in the unordered map as a string view, and string views are totally fine in maps because a string view to a built-in constant is just a place in memory anyway, so it's valid as a location in memory. So it's gonna look like this. I guess in theory we should have put const standard string view, and the function itself should be const too. I'm not sure why it wasn't. I think it's because I was using the array syntax, but I don't need to use the array syntax. I can use the at syntax. So we're just making some fixes to the code as we go, just for const correctness and everything. Oh, it looks like, hold on. That's weird. If the phase doesn't exist, it adds a phase. What? This is interesting. Why do we do that? Oh, this is a function that will, so it does modify. This is a function that will determine what phase we are on per strategy. basically every single strategy that a monster can run, because we already showed how the wolf can run multiple strategies, and each strategy needs to keep track of which phase it's on. This little enum here, or not enum, excuse me, this little get phase returns, yeah, it returns from this array, which is why we're doing this in the first place, because every single strategy has its own phase to run. So I guess that was an easy way of me to grab or set the parameters if they didn't already exist. I like doing that. I think that's called, there's a name for this. I think it's called like loose initialization or something like that, like soft initialization. It's like if it doesn't exist, initialize it. If it already existed, reference it, right? I think there's another name for it though, like a more professional sounding name. But anyways, yeah, we had to fix all these strings into string views now. So because the strategies are passing in the strings correctly now, we don't have to worry about any of this anymore being a problem, because we don't have to pass in an extra string for no reason. Now let's see here. How easy is it going to be to convert our configuration file reading to string views? Because it's really just the data structure, the getter, that's accepting the string views. I think that's fine. Let's see if we can modify that. So what I mean is, we currently use a util called the OLC data file. The OLC data file was written by JavaX9, and it's an easy way to read in like human readable configuration files, kind of like a YAML or a JSON file, but it's just another, it's a different type. It's got similarities and it's got some differences too. The main appeal to this is that it's very human readable. You can add comments, you can add extra like symbols to understand like what a value represents. It's just nice. It's very human readable. So that's what this custom data file format is, and this is the parser for it. So we're gonna look at the operator, the bracket operator, because this is where we handle reading in things easily. It's got this like nice little syntax here. And if we can convert it to string views, that would be nice, as most of the stuff that JavaX9 builds uses older C++, so it doesn't use string view. If I just convert this right here to be accepted, this map accepts strings, so if we convert that to string views, I think that'll be okay. That won't cause any issues. I'm just trying to think what else. Because we can do that, right? That shouldn't be an issue. And then vec objects should accept a pair. So this is the main data structure that holds everything together. A vector with all the data files linked to a string, and then an unordered map with a string linked to the index into the vector to allow for fast access and reverse access. I think that's all we would have to change. I could be mistaken. Everything else should remain the same, as they all deal with strings that just get inserted into that data structure. So, coming back to here, we just have to redefine the definitions to accept string views instead. And I'm noticing for our params also, we accepted strings that were copied. Again, another jarring thing here. Can we change that easily? We have a has property from data file. We have a get property from data file. I think both can easily accept a standard string view, and it shouldn't be an issue. And also, even if we weren't going to do string views, instead of copying the strings, we should be passing in either a const ref, or again, a string view would be ideal. So I'm gonna try to convert all these now, and see if we run into any issues. Again, back into the data file here. Accept a string view instead of a const ref, string ref, which is essentially the same thing. Let's see. No conversion from string view to string exists. Well, we should be able to accept a substring of a string view, which would produce another string view. And so as long as every one of these are changed to accept string views, we should be okay. Like, there's no downside to doing this, so we don't lose anything. So I think we're okay there. And that just leaves get keys, which should return string views instead of strings. Now I know I use get keys in a couple places, so we're probably going to have to modify some things. But if we're just using them as strings, then maybe they will just easily translate. We probably won't get too many compiler errors from that, as most of the time we're just using them as if they're standard strings. Unless we're doing something really funky, I don't think we'll have any issues. So I'm now going to replace all these functions to accept standard string parameters. And it's like, this is one of the benefits of refactoring. While we're refactoring, we can look at old code and say, hey, while we're at it, let's also fix these things, right? We can see old patterns we used to use and new patterns we would like to use, and make those changes as we go along. So that's nice. Alright, so far so good. I think this looks good. This looks good. We're back to the usage here. In terms of the conversion, set phase is having an issue as it also requires a string right now. So set phase, we will adjust to accept a string view as it's just indexing into a map. And in here, we will also do the same thing. Cool. So that should fix those. And it looks like the conversion of the wolf function was successful. So now that I know that this works, I'm going to move these macros into the monster strategy helpers, which is a file we expect to include whenever we're creating a strategy. This is just like supposed to be included. And while we're cleaning up these AI scripts, I'm going to delete the stuff we don't need, like the using a equals attribute portions. But yes, that is essentially how we're going to convert all of these AIs. We're essentially going to replace the top with a defined strategy, the bottom with an end strategy, and that should be it. But before I continue, let me go to the run towards script real quick. Apparently it doesn't want to pop up. Hello? Run underscore strategy. No, that's not what I want. I want... Is it not called run towards? It might be called move towards. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Move. I have no idea. Okay. Monster strategies. Where are you? Run towards. It is called run towards. Oh, I was playing the underscore. Okay. So right now the compiler will yell because all of these are wrong because they're supposed to be string views. So either way, we know exactly where we are and what we're going to change. So we already decided we're getting rid of this. This becomes define underscore strategy. Like so. This all goes away, and then at the bottom, we're supposed to put end underscore strategy. Like that, and that's it. That is the conversion we have to make for every single strategy. It will be a little tedious, but at the same time, this is the cost of a refactor. I'm gonna go ahead and open all these, as they all need to be modified. I don't know if it's okay. I also don't feel like it opened up everything, but I could be wrong. It looks like we selected a lot more than that. right? Pirate's treasure. And then just stopped. It's like the multi-select doesn't work. Oh, they're over here. They're on another window. Wasn't that funny? Some of them open up in one window, some open up in a different one. Okay, so it looks like we have them all, they're just in different places. Anyways, let's go through these. So, again, there's our define... I'll copy paste this, that way it's easy to use. I don't know why I don't need a defined strategy here. Kind of strange, right? But yeah, this will just be a bunch of find and replacing, which is fine. It could be worse, but I think we've come up with a good compensation for, like, I'm happy we found a way to avoid the strategy calling we were doing before, and I think that's actually going to be where the bulk of our errors are now, is that, oh, you know what? Does end work? I don't think end works. There's another end that we use that could work here. I'm just trying to remember where it is. It's whenever we, like, end... It's used inside of UIs, actually. Like, if I go to one of our menus... Let me go to, like, a menu... Or one of our windows. So if I go to, like... Let's go to our load game window, right? This is how we define our things. But we always have an end here, and that end is... Oh, it's a closed parenthesis. But something similar would be nice. It's just less verbose. But end underscore strategy is not a bad idea either. It was just a thought I had. Like, maybe we could use something we already made, but at the same time, end is very generic. As you saw, it at that moment in it referred to an OLC key end. So there is that. I also suspect that depending on the compiler, we're gonna have to do something more specific in the future when it comes to defining which defines it is referencing. So there's always that. I noticed a lot of times when I was trying to build these for like Linux, so we're definitely going to take a look at how the mscript and compiler handles this, because depending on the compiler, some defines get ignored or compiled at in a certain order. So every once in a while you end up with this weird scenario where, yes, it compiles on MSVC, but you go to GCC or Clang and all of a sudden something is not quite right. So I think that'll be an interesting thing to also look at. So once we're done and this all compiles and the game works again, and our unit tests are good, we're gonna go back and make sure it also works on mscripten, and maybe even try a Linux build. Because I do have a system that can compile on GCC. It'll be slow, but it could do it. And we could just take a look and see how that goes. Now here's, so yeah, here's where errors start occurring. So right here you can see the error is, like, it's trying to call run towards, and obviously this is an invalid statement. There was actually one earlier that started all this. Wait, what's going on here? This is a little different. No conversion. Oh, interesting, interesting. This wants to pass in a strategy name, which is a string view. That's funny. I'll replace this with strategy name, as that is the appropriate thing it is trying to pass in. I think it's still constref. Although you don't really constref a string view. At least you shouldn't. So we also have to modify that as a set strategy the strategy death function naturally changed. Oh wow, I have two different things going on here. But yeah, that doesn't need to be a reference now because it's a string view. Although that kind of makes me want to replace it with string view, because like later I'll be like, why isn't it a reference? And I'll be like, maybe that was a mistake, but then I realized the mistake was that strategy name is a string view. So I don't know. I'm having an internal debate about which one I prefer at this point. And then over here in the initialization, I like how in the definition of it, it's actually correct, which is hilarious. So, yeah. Software architecture sucks because as you are designing, you are having internal debates and conflicts with yourself to say, oh, I want this, but I don't want this, but I like it when it looks like this, I don't like it like this. And as the only person working on this code base, I have to directly decide how I want to run this. Oh no. I also noticed we have an issue. While yes, this won't call the run towards function, 0 is a valid command. As in, if I type 0 semicolon, that's valid. That's valid code. So I now run into another issue where I can accidentally do this and it's fine. But I guess you can do that with any enum, so it makes sense. But now I just realized everywhere where we call this, like, you can literally write this and that's valid code. Like, well, in this case it would look like this, but same thing, right? But yeah, a standalone enum with arguments hilariously is valid code. Unfortunately, that means I have to go through manually and change all these. It won't do anything anymore, but it is valid code, which sucks. Oh, that's so frustrating. That is super frustrating. I'm starting to think if there's a better way, right? Because now I run into the other situation where maybe in the future I'm not thinking and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna write run towards because that's the monster strategy name, and I'm like, oh, that's a number. Am I gonna realize that? I guess the coloring will get me because I'm used to it being yellow, which indicates that it's a function. When I see it as green, I think I will notice I'm not running a function anymore. So I think I'm okay there. But yes, this is an annoying issue that we will have to change. So I guess during my scrub of this, I'm also gonna have to change everything, which sucks. But maybe this won't be too bad, because this is as easy as doing a find and replace. Every time I call run towards, it will always be the same name. So in theory, all I have to do is replace it with the correct thing now, which is going to be run strategy. Still keep that and delete the rest. In theory, this isn't as bad as it looks. I just have to make sure to do it to everything. So I'm gonna do a replace all, and 34 occurrences were replaced. Now some of these are more popular than others, so I suspect it won't be too hard to do this for every single one. Let me pull up the strategies one more time. And I'll just go through each one real quick, and we will do that. I'm almost tempted to just write a little script that will... Yeah, you know what? I think we don't even have to write a script. We can just say, here, let's just do some text editing real quick. So if I do something like, it's gonna look like this, right? Is that that's the search string. So let's just warp these into our search strings that we're interested in. So do this, multi-select, grab all these guys. Well, I'm gonna have to make one of each. So it's gonna be boom, open parens, M, if elapsed time, comma, and the name of the strategy. Now this differs, so I'm gonna have to be careful about this. I guess I don't really have a choice here but to go around both sides like this. which is kind of funny. So those would be the search strings, and then the replacement strings would look something like m.run strategy, open parens, this, and then close parens. I ran into that same issue, don't I? I'm just gonna have to delete. I guess it would just look like this, and then delete the rest of the line. Or ignore the rest of the line. Yeah. Okay. Shift end. There we go. Okay. So it would be that. Those are the strings. So we can do something like this, where we say, okay, that is the search string, this is the replace string, and we just do that for everything, just to get everything out of the way. Again, some are less popular than others, so I don't think this will take too long. Like, there's one occurrence replaced. Find, replace. There's one. We do this for everybody. For occurrences, let me bring up this window. As this window, it'll be easier to copy into. Replace with this. It'll be replace all. Oh, it even tells me each time. That's kind of nice. I like that. That just gives you some confidence that it's oh, I guess we're always gonna get one at least, because this file will always have the one. So that makes sense. If we find one, it means that this was the only instance. Oh, I just realized I'm adding a semicolon. Is that bad? I guess I'm just adding an extra semicolon for no reason. I'll go through and do a find and replace on double semicolons after. That's kind of my fault. But it's okay. There were 4 of those. And we just keep going. It's a little silly, but I think this is a fast way to get through everything. Considering how much, like, that's how much game there is, and doing this refactor, we already understood doing this refactor, it was going to cost us a lot of time. It's in the sense of we had to touch many files. The game is quite developed, so there is a lot to change to make something, a design like this happen, a refactor like this happen. But I think something like this was necessary. It's been a pain point for a while that I kept putting all these I kept, for one, typing all these strings manually, and typing manually not only it results in a higher possibility of human error, because I might type the wrong thing and not realize it, then I'm gonna have a subtle bug in my code. But additionally, it's just extra fluff that doesn't need to be there. Like, it's so much easier to understand m.run strategy with the strategy name as an enum versus, okay, we're calling Goblin Bomb, put the monster as an argument, put that elapsed time, put the string again. You see why, like, every time it was just really annoying and a pain point. But to look under the hood and see how this was all designed, it's like, I can see why I did that originally, because to redesign it would have been a pain. And naturally, a project that is 3 years old would incur a lot of tech debt. Over time, you just throw extra arguments onto functions. You're like, oh, I can access this variable real quick. I'll just make like something static. I'll make this member public. I will make this function which calls this function instead, and then everything starts getting more and more confusing. Your project becomes a web of mess, and then you have to try and detangle it, right? That's the nature of software, and why programming is not easy, but still fun. It's still super fun, especially once you make it work, right? So yes, we got to witness I think this whole refactor took, well, it started yesterday around the halfway point in the stream. So I would say this refactor itself took a good 4 hours of time if we include today's changes. So yeah, pretty serious refactor. It really is. Alright, we're more than halfway done. There's a lot. And again, most of these don't get reused more than once, so unfortunately the find and replace doesn't amount to much, but considering we don't know what is and isn't in multiple places, I'm just doing them all, just to be safe. And then I'm going to, before I forget, at the bottom, I'm going to put a double semicolon comment, just so I know that means I have to go back and replace all the double commas, or double semicolons. And from there, we get to move on. We can finally do the thing I wanted to do this whole time, which is what brought on this whole refactor. Was I was finally fed up with the whole pass in these 3 arguments every single time we wanted to run anything, any strategy. I'm like, this is dumb. More importantly, why are we passing in redundant information, right? Surely we can do this better. What is this? Oh. Okay. We had somebody else join the Discord, yay! Alright. Hopefully, we don't run into a scenario also where our unit tests are failing anymore. That'd be great. Because that's gonna be the next thing, right? Not only do we have to make sure everything's still working now, but if any code called anything using the old strategy functions, it's gonna have to be changed as well, even for unit testing stuff. Because I know we've quote-unquote made up strategies before for testing, so it's entirely possible that could happen too. So we just did a full refactor of all that. I'm now going to undo what I did here, because that's the initial way we were supposed to do it. And then we're gonna do a search for all double semicolons and replace with single semicolon. And it says 99 replaced. Okay, which means we very likely just did 99 changes to m.run strategy from whatever they were before successfully. So I have good confidence that the find and replaces did what they were supposed to, and we didn't mess up anything else. I don't know where we left off. I think around frog. We did frog. So yeah, I noticed this was happening, and that's when I realized we had to do find and replace on all these. So Alright, that's good. At least we found a decent way to do this in a semi-quick speed, right? We didn't take too long to adjust all that. This part will take a little bit though, because we have to do some redundant stuff here. I don't know what I'm doing with this. Oh, I deleted the important part. The crab. Okay. Yes. There's that. Giant octopus. You'll get to see all the types of monsters we have in the game. At least what their strategy names are called. You get to catch a glimpse of all the silly spaghetti AI code. It's not really spaghetti, to be honest. Most of them have the same structure, where every monster has phases. We usually define an enum so that we're not just being like 0, 1, 2. You can see we use a couple macros to make things easier, specifically to reference their config parameters if they have special ones. Also, the reason why the config function is a macro is because we have to pass in, well, not only all this stuff, but the way we do it is we check multiple places to see if there are properties. So if multiple monsters inherit the same exact AI code, I want it to be flexible enough to where we can change the settings of that AI code without having to write a copy of that AI code with one subtle change. So it's a pretty smart way to design it, in the sense of, okay, for a pirate captain, it uses the pirate captain strategy, but there is it actually uses the goblin dagger strategy inside of the pirate captain strategy. And so when it switches to the goblin dagger strategy, there are overrides for it as well. So it keeps things very flexible in the sense of one monster could inherit a strategy of another and just write its own configuration of how it wants to run that strategy. And so that's why the configurations are a little more complicated than just, oh, check the config file. Because strategies have their own config file with like default values, I guess, and then monsters can overwrite those default values with something else. And so can NPCs. NPCs have their own values tied to them. Just a very easy way to do that. Oh yeah, also we have to be on the lookout for compile errors, because the strategy death function changed, and I did not type in, and I should be typing in, const strategy name right here. I should be doing that. That way, if I ever change this again, we won't run into an issue. So we have to be on the lookout for any other AI code that cannot compile due to that. I think everything else was good so far. Oh, there's one. Strategy death function. This should be a const strategy name. So that one's fixed. That one's good. 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 Okay. I think we're back on track. So, Goblin Boar Rider. Oops. And strategy. The only nice thing about instead making the monster AIs a linked library, because I was thinking about this, is that then the game is very moddable. And I think, especially like games like this, where it's easy to change everything, having the monster AIs be moddable, or new AIs to be created, would be a very powerful ability for developers. So I think that would be fun. But the game is already very easily modifiable, because all the config files, well, first of all, they're plain text. That's by design. There's really no reason, especially for an indie game, to really like try to encrypt your assets or hide anything. Who cares, right? It's also a single player game, so it's like you're not competing against anyone. You might as well allow the player to mess with the files and have fun if they want to. Why take away their fun by trying to make it harder to do so? So, like, the game is actually already pretty modifiable. Like, you can modify any level, you can modify all the stats, your save files are modifiable. Like, there's really nothing stopping you from just modding the game to play how you want it. And I was thinking eventually I want to be able to make it so you can actually like copy all the configs into its own directory, and there will be a menu in the game that lets you select like what game you are playing essentially. So if you create a set of settings that you want to play, but you don't want to modify the original game, then you can just select whether you want to play the original files or a custom set of files. And I think that would be pretty nice. That's just like a bonus feature for the future that I think I would like to include. Because in terms of modability, the game is very modifiable because naturally, as the developer, I want to make it easy enough for myself to modify the game. So naturally, the easier I make it to mod, the easier it is to mod everything. That just goes hand in hand. And that's actually how a lot of games become moddable, is that they were already moddable due to the developers making tools themselves to mod the game. So they're usually just a side effect with a little more polish. Like, naturally, if your intent is to make it so the game is moddable, you want to provide as many tools and easy ways to make that accessible to your player base. So that's really fun. That's why it's very important to separate your data from your code. The sooner you make that step happen, the easier it will be to modify your game. And naturally, I recognize that pretty early in development, so I made the switch to most data-related things being inside its own data file. Okay, there's that. I have not been checking for death functions. I need to keep an eye on that, as we need to modify these. Strategy name. Oh, you know what? The same thing is going to happen to these draw functions. Right now, this is wrong. Or at least it will be, like... Yeah, these need to change too. This is wrong. Strategy draw overlay function is wrong. Like, these are going to be conversions. So, yeah, these are all going to be wrong. I'm going to change them now so that we can get them out of the way and fix anything that have been using them, as that is all incorrect. So we got that one, we got that one. Strategy name. And these are the defaults, which I'm going to replace with these. Like so. Should be good after that. Okay. It's a little warm in here. Let me turn on the air. Oh my. It is very warm in here. It's also getting a little dark. It's like, it's gonna storm today, from the looks of it. Okay. But we got another hour, so we can at least finish this up today. That'd be great, and we'll be on track. So where did I see that? It was like, well, there's one here. Somewhere. There it is. And you know what? I might be able to do a find and replace on this for the sake of my own sanity, right? Like, this should be a find and replace, but I'm gonna look at what's being replaced just to be safe, because there might be other locations where this happens, but naturally this pattern is supposed to be for monster strategy stuff, so let's look for all of these. Let's find everything. Let's see what we got. Giant octopus, octopus arm. I don't know what that is. Oh, okay, it's just way down here with some extra variables passed in. That's fine. Because this is a lambda, so we're sending in some captures. Those look okay. So yes, I will accept all of these as a replacement. Excellent. So that should take care of those errors, because they all should have been the same effectively. I almost kind of wish I just wrote something here, right? Because this I'm copy pasting too. It's like kind of a pain point, right? To just have this here. I wish I could just write maybe a small macro that just replaces this with like strategy funk or something. I feel like that would be cool. I kind of like that idea. What if we do that? It's been something I've been thinking about for a while, so I kind of like that idea. Strategy, and I'm gonna go all caps here so I don't confuse this with like a type name or something. And I think I want to go with that. I really do like that. So let's go back here, or here, and we will try that right there. And we'll do a find and replace for all of those with the new one. But again, I want to make sure I'm not replacing something important that just so happens to use the same setup. So we're again going to look at everything we would change. Okay, and that looks good to me minus the monster strategy helpers part. So that's the only one I would go in and manually fix up. So I'm gonna keep a copy of this line, because once I make that change, it's gonna modify that line. And we're gonna replace this all with the strategy underscore funk macro. I really do like that. Okay. Cool. And then again, do that. So now we have this. And I really like that because that saves us from, one, making mistakes, and two, it just saves a little bit of typing. And we always like if we save a little bit of typing, of course. All right. Let's go ahead and finish up the rest of this. So, did that one. Did that one. Pirate is done. Pirate Buccaneer. Pirate Captain. Pirate Marauder. Pirate Coin, which yes, is considered a monster. It just made it easier to modify the behavior when it's considered a monster. And the funny part is, naturally, when you're designing your game, a lot of times if something you wrote kind of fits the paradigm or can be molded into the thing you need to use, you might just write it as something else. a long time ago, I used to play League of Legends, right? And there was always that meme of like, everything was coded as a minion. And it's like, it's that same concept. It's like, if the minion has all the properties you need to code the item you need, why not just code as a minion, right? There's always that. So a lot of things, if you play games and like sometimes things have weird interactions or act a certain way, like something acts like a monster, it might be because it's actually coded like a monster. Because naturally it just inherits stuff that a monster would have. And maybe the developer just decided that the monster was the best choice of thing to implement. Like some of the bullets in my game, well, abilities in my game are implemented as effects. So visually, they will do something, but they will also cause hurt damage in their update loops. But I also have a bullet class, which is supposed to hurt players via, like, getting hit by something. But sometimes the effect is so special, or mostly visual, that I switch to that effect class and just make it act kind of like a bullet. And then there are some bullets that are purely visual too, because the bullet has like a velocity system already. It has the physics I need. It might have the interactions I need. Like it has collision callbacks, which is very handy. And that makes it a very good candidate for anything that needs to listen for like strategy or collision calls. So sometimes you might just implement something as a class and never expect it, just because they have the properties you are looking for. It's kind of fascinating. Most games, though, they have like a generic entity that everything extends from. Whether or not it was a poor choice for me not to do that, or not, I went the route of anything I needed was individually handcrafted. And that has some benefits, but that also has some downsides. One of the immediate downsides I could think of is that you have multiple different systems you can choose from, and some will overlap others, so then you're like, well, should I have just combined them in the first place? Should I have just made an entity system in the first place? Right? Like, there were a lot of doubts when I implemented certain things in my project where I'm like, well, I could just extend the monster class further and further and further. Why did I not just make a general entity where monsters and players both shared the same things too, right? Like, consolidate literally everything. But in the end, it is what it is. You live with the consequences, right? This window is like kind of off-center. Also, I'm going to refresh the background, because this window does not have a background right now. This should work. Yes. Ta-da! I don't know why it does that sometimes. It's one of the weird bugs with the extension. Anyway, yes. Oh, and it's still doing it on the other window. That's funny. Okay, well, this is cool. We get an entirely black and white window. It doesn't even have syntax. Wait. I can't even edit this. Hello? What? What is going on? I literally can't edit this file. It's just a window. Okay. I will reopen that one. That's hilarious. Okay. I guess it just didn't want to load. That's so weird. Good old Visual Studio doing Visual Studio things, right? Sandworm. seagull. That all done. Yep. And we're just about finishing up here. Just in time. We still have to do all of our checks, so that's gonna be the next thing we have to do. To make sure the game actually still works. So, whenever we do such a large refactor, of course, we need to take care to make sure the game is still functioning, naturally. Oops. Again, the caps lock. This one doesn't even have a monster strategy helpers. Hello? Wait, it does. It's just being slow? It's being really slow, apparently. Come on, IntelliSense, keep up. You got things to do. I used to write this project in Visual Studio Code. Like, there were points in my programming time with this project where I've been on a Linux system doing dev instead of a Windows system, and IntelliSense would sometimes I think it was Clang at the time that I was doing it, would be really like slow and would stop working, and it happened so much with, I'm pretty sure it was just because of the project size, honestly, but it was really chugging along and having a hard time. It could have been the power of my laptop too. It was kind of shitty. So unfortunately, I found Visual Studio to be a lot more consistent, but it does hiccup every once in a while, and I think it's only natural with how much code is available in this project that it would do that. So before I do anything, I need to run a build. We need to see what compiler errors we get, because we're at the point where everything's been changed. What's left, right? Member function already defined or declared run towards, so I have a duplicate line here for whatever reason. That's funny. What's next? Strategy func undeclared. Ooh, I have something funny happen here. Oh, I found and replaced the actual thing itself. That's hilarious. Let me go to strategy helpers and grab that again. That's funny. I forgot those were gonna be there. Indeed. And if I really wanted to, I could literally put that macro there. It would work in theory. So those are fixed, I think. Yeah, those should be fixed. And then we got get ordered keys, cannot convert argument 1. So yeah, like I said, there will probably be a couple things that reference that data file as like assuming they're strings instead of string views, so we're gonna have to modify those. So we had to get ordered keys, which did a copy of all the keys. This function is slightly expensive due to a filtering function required to remove all comments. I would dare say we can actually change that. Ooh. Can we turn this into a range? I kind of want to. I really want to do that. And if I do that, that means I'm going to have to rewrite whatever uses this. But this can save us a lot of, like, whatever uses this, I don't think it much uses this. Probably 1 or 2 functions, right? But there is an opportunity to use, instead of copying this vector, to use a range view, to use views, because views just look into the vector and don't actually have to make copies and can just filter out the content that way. I kind of like that idea. Obviously, we're going to have to include ranges. And we're going to have to change a little bit of this code. This is inline, so we don't have to like change a definition or a declaration, but we do have to rewrite this part right here and the return value itself. So get ordered keys is not going to quite be used the same way it was before. I'm actually going to auto this because the return types for these get a little bit kooky. So what we do here is we return mvec objects, but we do this, which will, and we can start a standard views filter view of this lambda right here, and this will return a view containing only the items that satisfy that lambda. And this makes the cost of this function way less. In turn, though, it naturally changes what this function actually does. Well, not does, but it changes what happens here. So, linkage to create... wait, what? No operator matches these operands. This is a vector. It should? Maybe this is only possible in a 4 range. I don't think that's the case, though. I think you can create a view out of this. At least you should be able to. Am I wrong? It just says there's no operand, no, what is this called? A pipe operand for a standard vector, which I know is false. It should technically exist. But maybe this is only available as... Like, I know we can do this. This is very much legal. So we might have to look up what we need to actually do to make this work, right? Because I can do auto, like that, and get out both the key and the data file from there, filtered out, and I know that's legal. At least it should be. It looks like it's not accepting it here either. That's strange. Am I going crazy here? Let me look for another one of these. Standard views. It should be filter. So here's an example of one that we use on, again, this is a vector. So that's interesting. Maybe it's because we're doing this? That wouldn't make sense. What is mvec objects? It's a standard vector of a standard pair with a string view and a data file. Oh, this is a string. That's why it's just not matching. Okay. Well, that explains that. I forgot we did change that to a string view. Okay. So, backtrack here a little bit. That's legal, right? That is legal. Now, the return value... No suitable conversion from string view to string is comment. Okay, so we have to change that. It should accept a string view. That's easy enough. Back over here. Is comment is fixed. And then again, we should be able to return this range, or this view range now. Auto should be able to deduce what that is. Okay, are we good? It looks like we are good so far. So whatever uses this now, we're gonna have to fix, because this does something different now. The auto is now a standard ranges filter view. Naturally. That's why I did auto, because these templates get very wordy. So unfortunately, they're not very easy to type, or sane. It's not very sane to type these out, so... let's see what happens next. but this is just a lot faster than copying it to a new temporary vector and returning it. So actually this comment is no longer slightly expensive. This comment just, or this function just is. Does what it needs to do. Okay. The conversion of all this to string view actually wasn't that bad. I thought it was going to be worse for that config file, but apparently not. Okay, so what do we got now? Safe map, standard string item attribute, cannot convert all argument types and attributable stat. So we're gonna go there next. So there's gonna be a lot of things we're gonna have to change as we navigate this. So in here, key is now a string view. So naturally, attributes needs to accept a string view, not a string. This is for an attribute, so that's fine. A map can store a string view because the constant naturally just exists in memory somewhere. Or can be made to store it in memory? Is that actually true? Like, I didn't really think about that. We might have to see. I've been saying that, but I can't say I'm like 1000% sure about that. Let's just test real quick, because we have time while we build this thing anyway. So what I want to do is test if a string view from like a dynamic calculated value works fine inside of a map. I'm sure it does, and I think the hashing function of a string view is essentially just the string function. I mean, I could probably just, if we look at the source, maybe we can just look from there. That might actually be a way to do it. If I can hopefully find a hash. But then I won't know if it's going to reinterpret cast as an unsigned char star with something. Static cast size t, first index is 0, less than count, increase. Then there's this funny constant. That's fine, that's like just a hash function. Like, I don't know, and maybe we don't care if it hashes like a string, because it probably doesn't. It probably does something funny. But the whole point is, we want to see if whatever we dynamically generate from this naturally can get stored properly in here. So how would we do this? Let's say... let's just say for now we store like hello, comma 2, right? That's one value. And then let's calculate a hello string. Like, I'll just put hello with the capital H instead. Oh. And then what I'm going to do is change that to lowercase and put that in, right? So I'll do like test str 0 string. I think it's standard to lower. Okay. Equals 3. I feel like this should work fine in theory. No operator matches. Oh, oops. str. Oh, let's do this instead. str0 equals to lower str. So something like this. So I would actually expect this to overwrite. And it does. So a dynamically calculated string will... so I can think of it as like a string view key is literally just a string key. that gets sent in there is literally just a string key. It's the exact same thing. It's just it will accept a string view type. I guess that's how we want to treat it. Is it's a string, just has the name string view, so it's compatible with string view stuff. I think that's all we have to treat it as. Okay, so I think that's fine. Aesthetically, it's now correct, but it actually does what it's supposed to. So this is still complaining now. There's more than one instance of overload function safe map insert. What? So there's one declared at line 68 and one at 110. Huh? It's not sure. Wait, did I already have an insert? Am I dumb? How'd I... What? I thought it was complaining earlier that insert didn't exist, but maybe I was wrong. Yeah, I would rather use the... Wait. Yeah, that's weird. Why... I guess it doesn't accept const stuff, but how do I make sure... I'm pretty sure we don't need this one. But I think it was complaining earlier about it. Maybe it was complaining about something else and I thought that was the issue. But the insert function is there. Or is it? Oh, the insert function doesn't exist for unordered map. Just ordered map. Okay. Well, that explains why it was complaining earlier. I thought it needed it for both, but it only needs it for this one. So that's the one that was missing. Also, I'm pretty sure those can be const refs. Like, that makes sense to me. We don't really have to copy. Anyways. String defines an implicit conversion to string view. Okay, well... Yes, that is correct. But I was more concerned with what, why the string view key mattered. It's like, okay, if I put the string view as a key, then does that affect anything? And it shouldn't. Okay, so what is wrong here? So this key is a string view because it's coming from... Yeah, it's coming from config now, which is a string view. So we're gonna have to change, essentially, anything that relied on a string to now be a string view. So an event is now a string view. I have to be careful of that, though. Yeah, it's like the more string views we add, the more everything depends on it, so we have to be careful here. I don't know if I want to do that. I just want a standard set of string views here. I don't think... Because I'm not sure if event is used in places where... Like, for example, let's say I create... I'm pretty sure event extends out here, right? So yeah. Like, let's say this was a string view instead of a string, and then I did this. Sword is sword, right? So in theory, this would have been, if I change this to string view, this is now a string view. What if I assumed that was a string originally and did something to, like, store it or modify it? If I did that for a string view, I would run into problems. So, but then I think we'll get other compiler errors related to using it as a string instead of a string view. So I'm not sure. It's just interesting. This string view change comes with a lot of complications when it comes to using it in code. And this configuration stuff being used everywhere means that everything that originally thought these were strings is now being touched, is now relevant, which is a lot of the code base, as we can tell. No operator found which takes a right-hand operating type of string view. This is for a safe map with the song name, which I guess we're assuming is a string again. So again, I'll do a string view here because I'm not sure. I think we're okay to make these like using string views, but I don't want to just make that assumption right away without looking at all the code again. So again, anything that is related to this add event volumes uses event. So it looks like everything I've used it for here so far has been like related to strings, but then we see here I used it as a const string ref, which if we do a const standard string view ref, that's when we start running into problems because now it's a pointer to the string view, which is a temporary to a look in another string, and that's where we're going to start running into problems. So this is what I meant, is we have to be very careful about that. So this is now going to be const standard string view instead. Like, just changing it would have resulted in potential problems with the way we were using it, unfortunately. And maybe that's one of the benefits to also putting the using with the modifiers. But then again, you're looking at the parameter and you're not thinking if it's const or if it's a reference or not. So either way, you run into a problem. It's like you can't win in either situation. You have to make a choice. So this needs to be modified to be a string view, which I'm going to assume means all these are going to change too, but we'll have to see. I don't want to change something that is fine, but assuming all these are string views, then my hunch is everything will change here. But it would be nice to switch to string view as well, as it's been something I've been meaning to do for a little while. Okay, so we're back over here where event name is probably not correct either. Event name was an auto from events, and events is, well, that is a set of string views. So event names should be a string view. Add event volumes, I didn't change that one. Standard string view, yeah. But I think doing these all manually is smart because it means we get to review everything each time and really understand why we're changing it. I don't want to just blindly change all these, because again, then we're just going to run into more issues and we're going to have to debug this one line at a time anyway. So it's better to go through these hand in hand, one after the other, to make sure we're not making a critical error. Because just because our game runs doesn't mean it runs correctly. And so correctness is more important than making it run right now. With the project this large, I can't risk it being able to run, but running it incorrectly. Like, let's imagine we started up the game, and all of a sudden there were so many, like, critical memory errors, right? Pointers are pointing to the wrong place, things are just glitching out. That is when you have a nightmare scenario, because whatever you wrote is actually corrupting memory versus it just hard failing at first. That's why compiler errors are like a godsend. If you didn't have compiler errors and the code was just able to run and do whatever it wanted to do, well, then you're just leaving it up to the gods to determine if your program is correct or not. So alright, anyway, as I was talking about earlier, errors are also cascading, so we can see as we go further down the list, they make less and less sense. Like mini audio, it has a syntax error. We know that's a functioning working library, so there's no way mini audio could possibly have an error in it. So, yeah. We just fixed that. We just have to wait for a recompile. What I should be doing is after I fix something, I just pause or stop the compile and start from scratch. But I've also noticed that when I stop a recompile, sometimes the compile, I wouldn't call it a cache, but like the intermediate files before compiling and linking, whatever the compiler does for that, I don't know the specifics because I've never built a compiler, ends up causing weird things to happen. So yeah. Strategy data. Oh, I forgot to remove these while I was up here. So wait. Oh, this is old. I thought we literally went back to the beginning. Oops. Let's fix that, because that's all wrong. It's now monster, and I'll be specific here because it is a static function, or a static... Wait. Initialize strategies. Yeah, that's correct. It's monster strategies, I think. I guess I'm gonna double check under monster.h. It was called... Where is it? Oh, right here. Monster strategies. Good morning, Ame. Good morning, Plasticky. Good to see you. Hi, Plasticky. Yes. So we're gonna do dot insert. This is where I was trying to do dot insert earlier, and it said it didn't exist, right? Now we know it does. So we can't possibly go wrong now. I don't know why I'm editing the other side. Dang it. Okay. Redo. Dot insert. And these are now going to be a one object. And it's supposed to be a pair. So we have to wrap it in another set of curlies. And then the first value is the key. And the key comes from the name of the strategy. So that's right there. Inserted right here. Like so. And then these are complaining because... Why? Too many initializer values? Isn't it supposed to be a pair? 1, 2? It's supposed to be string plus function. I don't know how it can be too many initializer values. Insert... Oh, this insert is different. I forgot. The standard map insert requires a pair. My insert requires... Oh, that's not right. My insert requires just 2 values, because I think that makes way more sense than what standard does. So, yeah. But now I get confused because I'm like, the one I wrote and the one that standard uses are two different standards. Yeah. So that's safe map implementation. That's fixed. And that's what I was complaining about earlier with that unordered map, was the... Yeah. The insert function. No overload C can convert all the argument types. So we're gonna have to fix that. So yeah, it's complaining here. So I was talking about that const thing earlier. Maybe that's the issue. So I'm gonna go with non-const here. And have the constness be determined by what's incoming. At least that's my thinking. Again, I'm not entirely positive about this, but we will see. Templates get really confusing. And this is a template class. When I was originally designing this, I was very intimidated because I'm like, oh god, how do templates handle like constantness and transferring them, and how do I get auto to read into the original standard versions of these maps, etc., etc. Yeah, it gets very confusing. What I should have done, and maybe what would have worked better, was trying to create an inherited version of standard map and standard unordered map. I feel like that would have been easier than writing like a re-implementation or like something that covers up over a map instead. That's just a hunch I have though. It looks like it still didn't take, because it's just saying const strategy comma int does not match the argument list. Wait, no, that's different. That's old. Environmental audio. Let me see here. No operator found that accepts probably a string view. Yeah, we're gonna have to change that. That's a string. Now a string view. Okay. That needs to be redefined. Again, environmental audio sound name is now a standard string view. So I think a lot of these usings are going away. I think when I designed this, I was too aggressive on the usings, so that's probably something we're changing, but yeah. So far, so good. We're getting these changes in, slowly but surely. And more stuff is compiling, so the errors are fading fast, which is good. Let's see here, what's next? Standard hash, no overload function could convert all argument types. Okay, let's take a look at item enchant now. As I was saying, like, this string view stuff, or changing string view for configuration stuff, touches so much of the code base because everything relies on configuration values. So here, config used to be a standard string, so let's modify that to a string view. And we have to modify a lot of headers, unfortunately. And so touching headers causes recompiles, and recompiles do take some time, so this is no fast process for a game this large. Oh yeah, I was also trying to see, while this is going on, how can I remove the top bar in Visual Studio? I would like just a little more screen space, and we love screen space, so let's see if we can do that real quick. Standard toolbar? Oh, nope, that just removes the... I do like to have the debug stuff up. Well, yeah, because this tells me what build I'm on. It has a debugger button there, so that's convenient. I think I don't want to remove this toolbar, but I want to remove the top, the very top. I don't know if we can do that. That's probably somewhere, though. Show sidebar tabs. What would we call that? What is that called? It's just like the... I don't think it falls under toolbar. It's like... Look for any window settings, text editor. View white space, automatically indent. Show. File health, show selection matches, show editing content. I don't see anything to get rid of this top. I know it's kind of like if we go full screen, right? This is... That's still not enough. Also, what did this do? So it got rid of that one toolbar, but this is still on top, which is interesting. I would think in full screen, at least this would go away. That's fascinating. I do like there's more room though. Like, more space is nice. I still want to get rid of the top toolbar though. See, in these windows, like my sub windows, that isn't there, right? So I naturally get a little more space on those, but my main window, right? That's the one I'm most concerned with. Oh well. I'll figure it out one day. Or maybe it's not possible. I'm sure it's possible though. Alright, item enchant. We're still fixing plenty of things related to conversions. So string to class. This key is a string view. So string to class wants to be a string view. Yeah. Because we can pass in a normal string into there. It's just, will that be required to index anything? I don't think so. We can do find on a string view through class list. I don't think that works. Like, this is supposed to be a string. This is where things start getting tricky. I don't ever want to convert a string view to a string. That is very expensive. Unless I have a really good reason to justify it. Like item enchant info initialize. This might be an okay place where we can convert a string view to a string. We don't lose much performance from doing that. And it might be the only place where we should do that. I'd be down to do it in this scenario. Yes, I think I'll do it in this scenario, but I also think this should be a const standard string ref. If it's even going to be something we pass, because, like, why is it a copy in the first place? Again, looks like old code, right? Vector of strings comes from data get values. Oh, now this is interesting. Get values still returns a list of strings. So maybe this has to change. Content is still a vector of strings. No, that makes sense. We can't do a string view of a vector because that is not gonna convert right. Like, the only reason we can do string view in a map is because those values are technically hashed. But you can't hold string views in a vector for more than the lifetime of that string, whatever string you're viewing into, because it's just not going to exist after that. It's going to be garbage data. So we definitely can't convert that to a string view. That wouldn't make sense. So this stays a string. This wants to be a string. So the issue is reading it from the config. So the config value going in is where we have to do an explicit conversion to a standard string. And this is only when we're initializing at the start of the game. So this is one of the few times where I think it's valid to do a standard string. Oh, wait. I want to do that. I want to initialize a standard string from a standard string view. This is one of the few places where I think we want to do that for real. Same with the enchant list. Because I'm trying to think here. Why would we need the enchant list to hold string views? Yes, it is a map, so we could. Do we want to? Is it going to cause more harm than good? When we can just convert the key right here? I like the idea of doing this for now and seeing where we end up, right? If we have to modify enchant list, I guess we'll come back to it. And we had another error down here. Huh? Oh. Now that's funny. I did have a for loop with an infinite for loop down here that got replaced with a single semicolon. That's hilarious. Why am I using a while loop with the keyword for? That's funny. Well, let's do while true then. Because that's literally what that means and is the equivalent of that's hilarious. Roll random enchant. So yeah, it just keeps trying and trying until it returns a new enchant. So that's fair, that just does a while true. It just keeps trying randomly. It's one of those situations where it's like, yeah, we're too lazy to only list out the ones you can do, so instead just keep trying until you get to one that can. It's lazy, oh, that was what the term was earlier. That other function I was talking about was doing lazy initialization. Because if it doesn't exist, it creates it on the fly. If it does exist, it just references it. So yeah, we were doing lazy initialization earlier. But yeah, this is just a lazy implementation where we're making it so we just keep trying. If it fails, if it's invalid. Which I guess is fine for randomization. It's not optimal, but it does work. Alright, so where are we at with the errors? We're on item, which, again, probably just more config stuff we're going through. So this is initialization, so again, we're thinking maybe we do an explicit conversion of key into a string. I think that's a very fair thing to do here. Considering these were all storing strings before and are accepting strings, there's almost no real cost here. Right? If we were doing this in real time, it would be a lot more costly. But, is this a map? That is a map. That's a map. This is a map. This is a map. Lots of maps, right? Lots of hash maps. There's that, like, joke or meme, I guess, where it's like, what is the answer to, like, what is the answer to, like, every programming question? Maps. Hash maps. Everything uses a map. You can solve any problem with a map. Yeah. Anyway, let me, except we learned today we could actually use, an array with enums to essentially be a map, which is kind of cool. I never thought about that, but that is fascinating. So if these are all maps, I don't mind changing these to string views. Obviously, whatever comes out of these, now we have to take care of. Oh, this is interesting. This is a map of a set of strings. And a set is also a hash map. So that's interesting. Do we want to do that too? I don't know. I don't know what the extent of us going into there is, but we might. We might have to revisit that one. So item category currently is a string. Again, I'm not going to change that in case I used it in some critical location, but we will switch to a string view here. And then we'll go in here and we'll do more string view stuff. I'll be honest, I think this is why I never switched my project to ever try and use string views, because I realized the rabbit hole I would open up by switching to string view. If everything was was assuming it was using string view, all of a sudden we run into this issue where now everything has to work under string views. And so it's not just like a plug in and play kind of thing. You have to actually go in and build your code to use string views in the first place. So you can see how many things depend on each other in this game. So changing one thing changes everything. What is this error? We've been trying to figure this out for a while. Oh wait, I keep looking at that. Yeah, this one. So for this one, can't insert on a monster strategy to int, but they hash on monster strategy versus a standard pair const monster strategy int. So the second argument is const. So I have two choices. I think I have to either... Alright, hold on. Let me get back to the line that actually matters here. Because this... I think it's complaining about... No overload function can convert monster strategy comma int to a pair of const monster strategy comma int. That's the issue we're having. So wait, why does it say int? Hold on. Because that's not an int, right? That shouldn't be an int. How are we... Why is it considered an int? Because it should be holding a standard function. While compiling... Hold on, I'm trying to click... Okay. While compiling class template member function auto safe unordered map monster strategy function insert trying to match the argument list. I don't think it knows what this argument list. I think it's assuming it's a monster strategy comma int when it's clearly not. So I think we have to be explicit about the type here, because I don't think it knows what this is, funny enough. So this is wait a second. Yes, this is supposed to be a strategy function. I think we have to be explicit here. So I'm just gonna do that for all of these, because it looks like it's trying to create something completely unrelated. And it's getting very confused. Because I'm like, an int? I'm not trying to put an int there. Let's see. So that error still exists. I'm gonna come back to that one. That one might be a little trickier. Okay, this is item script stuff. Ooh, we're looking at properties now. Alright, properties are let's see here. So has property does accept a string view, which is the reason why it's complaining, I presume. Is that get float wants a string, but the key is a string view. But then in here, this wants to accept a string view anyway. So why not go string view as the argument, which would fix everything. And I assume we're gonna need to do the same thing for these other props. So I will do that now. Yeah. All of these, like so. And change all of the definitions as well. Probably do the same for the prop count function. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to come back to the safe map error, because there's something I don't understand here that I think is going to be critical to learning about this like template stuff. I might just have to put the const keyword somewhere, but I could be wrong. It might also be why it just didn't exist in the first place. Like, is the insert for unordered map just different? Am I misunderstanding this? Let me try standard unordered map. Insert. I don't think it can be different, right? That wouldn't make any sense. Insert. Const value type value. Okay. Insert const value type value. It's the same thing. Expects a pair. Just like before. Okay. Item.cpp. Sorted inventory redefinition, different basic types. Okay. So I messed that up somehow. I see. I just forgot to change it. String view. It was static, that's why. What a mess. This is exactly why I didn't want to change things to string view in the first place. I think this might be all the time we have today. I wasn't expecting to do all the string view stuff, but I realize now, going into it, that it's happening. I'm trying to convert my project to string view now. I've been avoiding it for a long time. I don't even think it's really worth doing, but I'm doing it now. So, it's become more of an exercise than a necessity at this point. Well, it's turned into a necessity thanks to me choosing to go down this route. This says, cannot convert argument 1 from string view to string reference, which it shouldn't be doing anymore. String view. So yeah, as you can see, this will be quite tedious, but I guess we're finishing that up tomorrow so that we can, at least the monster strategy redesign is done. So it's just a matter of converting all these to string views. Our project will actually have string view implementations now, so that's good, I guess. Which was something I've been avoiding for a long time, but maybe I can finally have the freedom to use string views in my project without issue. Which would be kind of cool, I'll be completely honest. I've been meaning to, just every time I try to use string view, I'm like, oh, my configuration system requires strings. I can't convert that every time I want a value from it. I need to revert. And this happened every single time I tried to do it. So, yeah, we're at that point. Trying to add a string view to strings. So I can actually convert this to a string view so that that works, I think. I think you have to define the literal though, right? There's like a literal for string view. Let me just look up string literals real quick. Or not string literals, but literals. There's an include you can do for that. String literals symbol index. String view literals, that's what I need. So if I do using namespace, I will only do string view literals. That way I have access to those, but I'm not going to use every literal. And that should make... Oh wait, that's my custom literal. That is a custom literal. Okay, hold on. Maybe I don't need this. I think it's just SV by itself. Yes, okay. So, make these all string view literals and they should add together. I think my only issue now is this is supposed to read from, so I have to make something that returns a string view instead of a string. So an operator that returns a string view. So that's for next time. We'll leave everything here and we'll continue next time. Read a string view key from the config. Alright, so for those of you that tuned in, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you tomorrow. We have our work cut out for us now. I think we're almost done. We're probably like halfway through the errors. But yeah. Bye.